Hey, Frog Prince Runner here, and thank you for dropping by. Mathematical miracle. Well, a miracle is defined as a surprising and welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore considered to be the work of a divine agency. So when we put it after mathematics, which is the science of numbers and their operations, it sure feels like an oxymoron. But many of us do see some amazing, let's say, attributes in math that we can call miracles with some stretching of imagination. Back in my days, before the advent of smartphone, we weren't even allowed to use a calculator at school. My dad had a slide ruler, which is one of the best thing ever. But even that device wasn't allowed. Certain skills from my generation, boy I sound old, are now redundant. One of the cool things I knew about maths were the shortcuts to know if a number could be completely divisible by another number. For example, can 314,159,262 be divided by 3 and not having any reminder? Well, yes it can. And no, I didn't use a calculator to know that. It literally took me less than 10 seconds to figure it out. The trick is, if the sum of all the digits in the number is completely divisible by 3, then the original number is also completely divisible by 3. By the way, the sum of all those digits is 33. For 9, it is the same method, but the total must be divisible by 9. Pretty sweet, right? 11 is also pretty neat. If the difference between sum of all the alternate numbers are 0 or divisible by 11, then the original number is also divisible by 11. Take the number 3,606,042. Doesn't matter which end we start from. Let's start from the left. Summing up all the digits in odd position, that is 3, 0, 0 and 2, we get 5. Summing up all the ones in even position, that is 6, 6 and 4, gives us 16, and the difference is 11. And thus we know 3,606,042 can be divided by 11. But these are neat. But not exactly miraculous, is it? Well, let's look at something with a bit more oomph. Beginning with a basic 1 plus 2 equal to 3. Pretty straightforward. Now the next line is 4 plus 5 plus 6 equals to 7 plus 8. If you haven't seen this sequence before and have already sussed it out, you should be getting all wet right about now. For those still catching up, the next line would be 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 equal to 13 plus 14 plus 15. And then 16 plus 17 plus 18 plus 19 plus 20 equal to 21 plus 22 plus 23 plus 24. Now, if that is not miraculous, I don't know what is. Obviously, at some point we also get introduced to phi and realize that it is all around us, from flower petals, seed heads, pine cones, hurricanes to even DNA molecules. The wonder of math is all around us. All we need to do is look. Which brings us to the video in question. A mathematical miracle in the Quran that will blow your mind, from a channel called Wonders of Islam. And the description reads, "The world is full of science to the believers, and this channel will be dedicated to bringing everything together." Now I am completely ready to get my mind blown away. But I'm rather apprehensive regarding the description. Normally, science should be for everyone. You may not be a believer of round earth, but all the proofs and signs are there for us who knows it to be round, and those who chooses to believe it is flat? Or is it Scotomisation, the psychological tendency in people to see what they want to see and not see what they don't want to see? Well, we'll find out soon enough.
I'm going to talk to you about the biggest surah of the Quran. That's what I'm going to talk to you about first. The biggest surah of the Quran. Now what is it, folks? Yeah, this is surah number 2. Surah number 2. This surah, this biggest surah, number 2, is made up of how many ayahs? 286. 286 ayahs. Somewhere in this surah, the ayah occurs, I'll recite the Arabic first and roughly translate after. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Thus we made you a middle nation. One of the utterances in this surah that's found in here is thus we made you a middle nation. Now what's the Arabic word for middle? Wasat. The Arabic word is wasat. You don't have to know that. But know that this statement, this declaration occurs in this surah. Baqarah, the second surah, is made up of 286. And in ayah number, listen to this carefully now, in ayah number 143, the Lord says, we made you a middle nation. How many ayahs in this surah again? 286. And where does He call us a middle nation? In the middle.
Now, before I get all pedantic, let's have a look at the translation. Quran is written in Arabic, and there are many translations available. The one picked by our narrator is from Muhammad Marmaduke Pickthall, the first British Muslim to translate it back in 1930. Now, the major problem encountered by the translator of the Quran is the difficulty in rendering some lexical items. Thus, we get different translations, though the gist should be the same or similar. So let's look at 8 different translations for Surah Al-Baqarah. Shahi International translates it as, "And thus we have made you a just community, that you will be witnessed over the people." Pickthall's translation reads, "Thus we have appointed you a middle nation, that ye may be witnessed against mankind." Yusuf Ali's read, "Thus have we made you an ummah justly balanced, that ye might be witnessed over the nations." Shakir's translation, "And thus we have made you a medium (just) nation, that you may be the bearer of witness to the people." Muhammad Sharwar's read, "We have made you, true Muslims, a moderate nation, so that you could be an example for all people." Mohsin Khan's translation, "Thus we have made you a wasat, just, and the best nation." Arbery's read, "Thus we appointed you a midmost nation, that you might be witnesses to the people." Finally, Quran Project's translation, "And thus we have made you a median, i.e. just, community, that you will be witnessed over the people." Basically, all it comes down to the word wasat. A literal translation of that word is middle. In the context of the sentence, I'm unsure what middle nation means, whereas a just nation or moderate nation makes a lot more sense. But let's be pedantic. In grammar, middle is the point or position at equal distance from the sides, edges, or ends of something. Now let's start easy with some items. I have 5 items on screen in a particular order. So, which one is in the middle? Easy is the third item. What if there were 4 items? Now things are complicated. Which one is in middle? Is it the second one, because 4 divided by 2 is 2? Or is there no middle item? Sentences behave similarly. With the following 3 sentences, this is the first sentence, this is the second sentence, this one is the third sentence. The sentence in the middle is the second one. But for middle word, we have the same problem. It's an even number of words. Back to the surah. With 286 ayahs or verses, it's a damn even number. So can it really have a verse in the middle? Well, no, it can't. From verse 143, there are 142 verses before it and 143 verses after it. So how is it in the middle?
I understand if you're going to do this in writing. How do you do this in speech? And by the way, at the time, there was no concept of ayah number. Like I told you, ayahs, there are 286 ayahs and there's 143 ayahs. At the time, they never said, haven't you read ayah 12 of chapter 35? They didn't talk like that. They just recited the ayah. They didn't have this number scheme. When did this number scheme become part of the Quran? When the Quran was finally put into book form.
Obviously, the question here would be, how were they divided into different verses? A lot of the verses are single encapsulated sentence. Then there are some with multiple sentences. Then again, there are some runaway sentences. For example, Shahi International Translation of 218 reads, "Deaf, dumb and blind, so they will not return to the right path." On its own, this sentence makes no sense. If we go to the previous one at 217, it reads, "Their example is that of one who kindled a fire, but when it illuminated what was around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness, so they could not see." Still, it is not obvious who they are. When we look at 216, we seem to understand a bit more, but not completely. Those are the ones who have purchased error in exchange for guidance, so their transaction has brought no profit, nor were they guided. When we look at 219, or it is like a rainstorm from the sky, within which is darkness, thunder and lightning. They put their fingers in their ears against the thunderclaps in dread of death, but Allah is encompassing of the disbelievers. Or 226, indeed, Allah is not timid to present an example, that of a mosquito or what is smaller than it, and those who have believed know that it is the truth from their Lord. But as for those who disbelieve, they say, what did Allah intend by this as an example? He misleads many thereby, and guides many thereby, and He misleads not except the defiantly disobedient. But at 215 the verse is, Allah mocks them and prolongs them in their transgression. They wander blindly. Well, I would love to know from an Islamic scholar why some lines get to be their own verse and part of a longer verse in others. Following such ambiguity, one can make up any number of verses while documenting the first Quran, and that is what would stick. So do I think someone split up the verses so the middle nation or just nation would be on verse 143? No, I think it is a coincidence, and for Muslims, maybe a happy coincidence. But treating it as a mathematical miracle is quite a stretch. And reading some of the comments, reading this ayah in particular for so many years, but never noticed this mind-blowing miracle. It is impossible for anyone to arrange a speech spread over a span of 10 years to match the meaning of the verse and the word in a book, but only Allah can make it possible. It's amazing. Who would have thought these mathematical miracles in Quran? Indeed, Al-Quran is the almighty SWTS's word. These types of miracle and secrets in Islam make me goosebumps. And my personal favorite, wow, this is a great mathematical breakthrough. What a bunch of idiots. Well, e to the power pi minus pi equals to 19.999099998. Now that is a goddamn miracle. using a nonsensical translation with a nonsensical middle is anything but. Well, that's all for this video. Drop a like if you found it amusing. If you want to be super awesome, please consider subscribing and so on. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated and helps with YouTube algorithm. Anything would help. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, have a safe day. Signing off.